first example that we're going to look at, we make a pot size raise under the gun with ace king. So this is an example of a time when I think you can fire a second barrel on the turn even though it was not a scary card. So there's a lot of ways. I mean, if you've seen my flop series, I suggest that this kind of board texture, where there's one big card and two little cards, is a really good board for you to continuation bet. So if your opponent knows that, there's a lot of ways that he could be calling. He could be calling with as little as a gut shot on a flop like this. So he could have like Jack 9, Jack 10, 9 10, certainly 9 7, 9 8, 8 7, 6 7. Potentially your opponent could be calling with like any pair and any gut shot on the flop, especially if he's kind of tricky. And it's even possible that your ace king is still good. I mean, you might not be ahead of his range, but your ace king could still be good. This is maybe even a little bit of a semi bluff, since hitting an ace or a king on the river could be enough to win you the pot, even if you are called on the turn. But this is a time where there's a lot of stuff he could have been calling with on the flop, and I think that a second barrel, at least against the right opponent who will recognize that this is a good board texture for you to bet at and will be able to call light on a flop like this. This is an example of a time where, even though the turn is a complete blank, his flop calling range should be light enough that you can get away with firing a second barrel. And firing that second barrel is really important. I mean, this isn't an optional play. For you to, if you're giving up too much on the turn and you're making it profitable for your opponent to call your continuation bets really light, so firing the second barrel is a way of protecting your continuation bets. So the continuation bet, being able to bet at the flop after you've raised pre-flop, is potentially a really strong and profitable play. But a lot of people realize that, and they will try to interfere with your ability to use it. So firing a second barrel is one really important way of protecting your continuation bets, making it so that your opponent can't just call you anytime he flops a gut shot and then take the pot away from you on the turn. You have to be able to double barrel with air in order to protect your flop bets, even if it were kind of a break-even play in its own right. So that's one example. The second is a similar situation. You've raised under the gun. You get called in one spot. You bet at the flop. Now this time, the turn card is not a blank. In fact, it's a card that improves your opponent's range considerably.